could not make camp in the damp forest glade, so I led my companions along an old path towards the base of the mountain. It was overgrown with all manner of foliage, and the footing was difficult. Armor and weapons littered the path, and stakes stood tall, covered with vines and moss. Glancing around, I spotted a magnificent blade. Light yet firm and unblemished by the elements, it shone in the rain and lightning, a long light in the darkening trail. The hilt was fashioned from steel, inlaid with silver and gold to form the figure of a defiant, wingless dragon. As we reached the summit, I could not believe my eyes. A ruined yet imposing castle loomed above us. Quietly rejoicing, my comrades moved towards their new camp. Then, we heard howls. The massive wolves bounded out of the door of the castle towards my soldiers. Fearing for their lives, they drew weapons, only to hear a voice from the shadows address the wolves or the men in a thick Valaquian accent. "Stand down, fellows!" Throwing large slabs of meat to the ravenous wolves, he calmed them and satiated their hunger. Then he turned to us. "Welcome to Polianari Castle, the ancient stronghold of the Draculesti." The mysterious man raised his hands in a gesture of welcome. "It is well that your path has led you here. Come inside, sit by the fire and feast, while I tell you the tale of Vlad Drácula." My lord! The landscape around us is crawling with Daneshti scum, but 3 local voivodes resist Vladislav's reign. We should seek them out and see if they are willing to join our cause.
Emre?
Dracula, your timing could not have been better. Vladislav's forces march here as we speak. Take my men and drive them off.
Emre?
Forward, men! Bring me Mircha's head!
Well fought, Dracula. I will follow you to the abyss and back.
Vladislav pillages my lands with impunity, Dracula. Even now, more of his reavers prepare to cross the nearby bridge. Find a way to destroy it, and all of the men that I can muster are yours.
Evet, hazır ol.
Lord Dracula, the Daneshti fools store a cache of gunpowder inside that tower overlooking the river. If we were to fire it, the explosion would surely be enough to demolish that bridge.
Aha! The sweet smell of burning gunpowder. Oh, you are a man worthy of my loyalty, Dracula.
That rascal Vladislav have seized the nearby settlement and cut us off from our trade. If you can retake it, I will reward you handsomely. This man will do your bidding, and this gold will finance your war.
The wolf is cornered, but not yet dead. It is time to take the fight to his den.
This is the rebel you bring before me? Prepare to feel the wrath of the Este.
Emret. Allah Allah aldım. Evet.
Slay all the Neshti that you find, but bring Vladislav to me. I want him alive.
My lord, a large Hungarian army approaches from the north, with Vladislav at its head.
Curses! We cannot hope to face such a force. I will seek refuge with my cousin Bogdan in Moldavia.
I stepped forth, holding out the mysterious sword and scabbard for our host to inspect.
The Order of the Dragon, he said at once. What you have just brought me is the lost blade of Vlad Drácula himself. I was shocked and immediately demanded an explanation. Our host's eyes flashed, and there was a strange look on his face. Finally, the rush of memories seemed to slow and become more controlled. That is a long story. But then again, we have a long time until dawn. Dracula sought refuge at the Moldavian court. There, he learned that Vladislav II had begun to mediate peace talks between the Ottomans and Hungarians, securing his position as voivode of Valaquia. Furious, Dracula swore vengeance on Ottomans, Valachian boyars, and Danish clansmen alike. Dracula knew that he needed to enlist the aid of the Hungarians against Vladislav II, whose policies favored the Ottomans. He also remembered his education under the Crusading Order of the Dragon and wanted to honor his vows. The Order was a powerful ally, and their Crusader knights would serve Dracula well against his enemies. As he paced the streets of the Moldavian capital, Dracula mused over his plan to reclaim his kingdom. As the mysterious old man paused, I rose up to take another slab of venison. The old man stared into the fire, watching the flames dance as if they were soldiers involved in a raging battle. His eyes flashed again as a thought entered his mind, and he grasped the majestic old sword. Meanwhile, Sultan Mehmet II had ascended to the Ottoman throne. Dracula loathed Mehmet from their time in Edirne, and he knew that the Turks would be a thorn in his side for years to come. In 1453, they had conquered Constantinople, but they were presently occupied with campaigns in Greece and Serbia. Bogdan II, Dracula's cousin and the new voivode of Moldavia, had heard of his kinsman's plight and offered his help. If Dracula could cross the Carpathian Mountains into Transylvania and ally with Hungary, then they could launch a three-pronged assault on Vladislav II and the Turks.
Welcome, Vlad. What do you desire from humble Moldavia? I need advice on how to reclaim Valaquia, my birthright. To the northwest, in the Transylvania forest, lies the Bram Castle, a stronghold of the Order of the Dragon. You will find supporters there.
We will ride there with all haste.
Go, but beware of the Neshti troops on the road.
This mine may prove useful later.
Halt, friends! A large Neshti force blocks the mountain pass. If you were to slay the Neshti general in command of the forward camp, it may draw the attention of the army and lure them away.
Arise, brothers of the dragon. Let us send the usurper to his grave.
Építkezek.
Die, scum! And now, quickly to the pass.
Építkezek.
The Order of the Dragon is decadent but feeble. My cavalry will trample you into the dirt. My boyars know how to treat Draconestic fools. You will fall like your father and brother before you.
Dracula, I see no point in us fighting when we share a common enemy in the Turks. If you would supply our army, we would gladly aid your cause.
Excellent! We fight with you!
You may have the support of the Hungarians, but I have the Ottomans behind me. You will make a fine target for our gunners. We can use these mining camps to help clear away the rubble from that bridge.
Vlad is dead! Long live Vlad Drácula! The elderly man gave a thin smile. Tenacity of mind can compensate for other disadvantages. As Dracula slaughtered untold numbers of enemy troops, the large circle of impaled men outside Dargovista grew to awe and disgust travelers for weeks to come. Dracula owned Valaquia once more, but it was not the land his forebears ruled. Barren from endless wars, it was rife with corruption, crime, and poverty. Aghast, I asked my host how Dracula managed to reform a ruined shell of a country so quickly. Grinning, the light flashed across the old man's eye again. Dracula despised dishonesty and crime and sought to eliminate it. He knew that Valaquia had to become strong enough to face its enemies, and soon. And so, his reforms began. The punishment for all offenses was death. For Dracula needed to make an example of criminals. Under his strong rule, trade was reopened and the economy blossomed. Proud of his achievement, Dracula placed a golden cup in the central square of Terminista. Cup was never once touched throughout his life. I was shocked. The share of the stake was surely enough to prevent crime, but to rule Valaquia while simultaneously evading the plots of the boyars was no small feat. Dracula invited all of the boyars to a feast and asked them how many rulers they had seen perish due to treachery. None had seen fewer than 7 reigns, while some had even seen 30. Furious, Dracula arrested them all and marched them here to the former ruin of Culinary Castle. For months, they labored to rebuild the castle, toiling even after their clothes fell off. Those who survived were slain. Finally, Dracula had eradicated the fickle, conniving boyars. He replaced them with loyal followers, neither knights or common peasants. Strong again, the dragon was ready to breathe a flame that would engulf his enemies, the Turks.
My lord, I have scouted the fortress of Giorgio, but it is well defended. We will need siege weapons to take it.
These Turkish bombards will come in handy.
Vlad Drácula is here to liberate us from the Turks!
Giorgio is ours! From here, we can extend our control throughout the entire region!
Bringing down those towns and fortresses one by one will be difficult. We could scout their lands to find ways to exploit their weaknesses. Orsova is known for its wood production. The whole region depends on its lumber to build their ships. This is Oblusitsa's stone quarry. Without it, our enemies will not be able to build more towers.
We will give you everything that we have. We are but a small village. If you spare us, we will give you all that we have.
Our score has fallen! This will weaken the Ottoman hold on the region!
Much of the food supply in the region comes from Novo Selo. If we destroy all of their mills, the enemy will be unable to feed as many men as they would like.
No other choice than to help the Turks. They threatened to kill our family. Enough, please, enough. I'm sure that for a certain price, you can find it in your heart to spare us.
This wise man, whomever he was certainly no commoner. I wondered aloud if perhaps he had fought in the wars of which he spoke. My question was answered with a grin and a nod. I was awed to encounter a soldier who has survived those years of turmoil and bloody warfare was rare. We sat to Giorgio, Darstor, Novoselo, Dridopoiron, and many more towns, he muttered, revealing the scars on his arms. Our strikes were swifter than bolts of lightning. Yes, we have peace now, but I have never found it. Not a single day goes by when I do not think about it. Dracula never breathed a word of it, but many began to think that his time at the Ottoman court had stoked his hatred for his southern neighbor. For years, he had brooded over his brother, Radu, who had treacherously pledged himself to the Turks. Dracula also had his vows to the Order of the Dragon to consider. The Pope and the Hungarian regent both desired war with the Turks. In the year 1462, Sultan Mehmed II renewed his efforts and sent a force of 18,000 into Valaquia. Thinking that Dracula would be unable to mobilize his army quickly enough, the Sultan sought to take Valaquia by storm with this small force. He was, of course, sadly mistaken. I had heard whispers of the Danube butchering, but never a first-hand account. Dracula's enduring ability to overcome the most fearsome force of his time mesmerized me. Dracula had a thirst for blood unlike any other, but he was fair. His sense of justice brought a change in all of us. Dracula taught us to use our strengths to our advantage. Terror, speed, and surprise became weapons more potent than our blades.
Finish these Ottoman dogs, but seize what prisoners you can. We will impale them all back at Targovishta.
One upset does not win a war, Vlad Trácula. 10 times the number of men that you just faced advance as we speak. Prepare to meet your god.
The border castles are the key to this region. We must defend them all from the Turkish onslaught.
My lord, the boyars and the peasants in the countryside will provide us with resources to field our armies. But they are a fickle lot. Perhaps it would be wise to seize what they have before they turn it over to the Turks.
The arms of the Sultan's vanguard shine like gold in the sun. Soon, they will add your silver to our coffers.
Ottoman forces threaten your stronghold at Boyanari, my lord. The fortress of Rasnov is under siege. Defend it at all costs. The Turks are attacking the citadel at Fagarash.
Do you remember Radu Bey, your brother? The legions of Janissaries under his command alone outnumber the peasant rabble that you call an army.
The fortress of Rasnov is under siege. Defend it at all costs. Ottoman forces threaten your stronghold at Boyanari, my lord.
Even the vast walls of Constantinople crumbled before the might of our bombards. Do you truly think that your measly fortifications will withstand the barrage?
The fortress of Rasnov is under siege. Defend it at all costs. Hungarian cavalry have arrived to aid in our defense against the Turks.
Hold on, my brothers. Our victory is nearly in sight.
Ottoman forces threaten your stronghold at Boyanari, my lord.
Unfortunately, this was where my lord and I were separated. The Turks entered the castle courtyard at Boyanari with murder on their minds and ransacked the fortress that we had fought so hard to defend. Taking refuge in a secret tunnel, I watched Dracula's boat float downstream. The stone bastions of Puyanari never caught flame, so I was spared. As if God was with us, an avalanche struck the departing Turkish army and blocked the route to the castle. Although this evidence of divine retribution stirred our host, I figured it was caused by the enemy camp. I was not eased by the change in the mood of our host. The calls of wolves and the bats filled the air as we feasted. It seemed that the old man was lost in ruminations of times long gone by. Finally, the ancient warrior resumed his tale. It was a long 12 years. I was alone, waiting here for signs of Dracula's return. But all I ever saw were Turkish marauders ravaging the countryside of this once beautiful land and tormenting the people. One thing kept me from despair. The last words I had heard from my lord, that he would return in the end. I repeated these words to myself every day and promised myself that he would succeed. It was a fool's hope, but it was the best that I had. So I endured. Dracula had preserved enough food and water in the castle to last an entire army several years. I had begun to think that he would never return, but rumor among the locals told me differently. When I overheard the same as I spied on Turkish patrols, I became more confident. I shuddered at the sight of the land that he would return. One day, I awoke to the thundering of hooves and the frenzied war cries of soldiers pouring down from the Carpathians. It was Dracula, at the head of a Hungarian army come at last to liberate us from the yoke of the Turks and their Valaquian puppet, Basarab Leota.
Dracula drives his Turkish invaders off and retakes the fortress of Sabat. Poruč. Zavoda.
Hungarian border is safe from the Turks. To Valaquia!
Igen.
Arise, brothers, and help me overthrow the usurper, Basarab Leota!
Vlad Dracula's men. We are only humble craftsmen. But if you protect and feed us, we will construct cannons for you.
Szolgálatán. Támadás! Igen, uram.
You have stirred the wrath of the great Ottoman Empire for the last time. Now you will pay with your life.
Parancs.
You are beyond generous, Lord Dracula. We will begin our work immediately.
Hail fresh. Some of the finest warriors in all of Europe are for hire here. Tuscan condottieri or balestrieri from Genoa.
The bombard cannon is ready. The enemy will tremble at the
Értettem.
sight.
Rendben. Igen, uram. Rendben.
My puppet Leota has orders to take you alive. Kazigure. A pork steak awaits you in
Igen,
Istanbul.
uram. Igen. Szolgálatán. Támadás! Parancs! Előre! Igen. Rohan!
Traitor Bassaram Leota is dead!
Szolgálatán. Parancs! Előre!
The bombard cannon is ready. The enemy will
Igen.
tremble at the sight.
Igen. Előre! Rohan!
The Turkish invaders have been pushed back once and for all!
Dracula achieved victory at last, and the invaders fled before him. Rallying his men, he charged the enemy ranks with an unspeakable vengeance that emboldened his army. A decisive victory was near, but it was at that hour a volley of arrows whistled through the air and struck Dracula in the chest, knocking him from his horse. The Turks easily routed our leaderless forces. Our chance to drive them out vanished. The occupation resumed, and the survivors disappeared. The memory of a great man endures forever. As a token of gratitude, I invited our host to join us in a pilgrimage to the monastery at Snagaf to pay our respects to Dracula's grave. Tears running down his face, the elderly man could